It's 5 o'clock in Pirate Country, and it's time to get pumped up with the P-Man. Hit the door and hit the road. 94.3 The Game is going to get you home, and the P-Man's not holding back.
Yes! Yes! Pirates win! Pirates win!
Bring on the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
Holy mackerel! Oh, my goodness!
The flagship station of the ECU Pirates.
From the working man's beach, Surf City, Patrick Johnson with you today. Special time every Thursday, 4 o'clock leading into the Logan Zone, which comes your way from 5 until 7 here on 94.3 The Game. We'll be back tomorrow in our normal spot. Coach Logan will be with us tomorrow in the 5 o'clock hour, and also Chris Cherry from South Central. So that's the lineup. Today, Rene Ingolia from ESPN, who's going to be on the call for ESPNU between App State and East Carolina, will join us in a little bit to talk about that and talk some college football. We start, though, with Amanda Christovich, who is joining us from Front Office Sports. She's been on the program before, and the first time that we get to speak to her via the video uplink, so we're excited about that. Amanda, great to see you. Thanks for coming on during what is a pretty busy time. Never a dull moment for you. Thanks for your time here this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I was hoping to put on a little more makeup for my video debut for you, but the Pac-12 had other ideas, so we did not have time to do that, but I'm here.
Well, let's start with that. So the announcement, the Pac-12 is going to bring in Fresno State, Colorado State, Boise State, and San Diego State, joining Oregon State and Washington State. Mountain West says, hey, we're sticking with the idea that we're going to, it's not going to be till 26. We're going to make sure we get all of the fees for departure, which is going to be in excess of $110 million. So how did this deal go down, and what have you learned about it here since it was reported overnight?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the most important thing to note here is that the Pac-12 is going to live to fight another day. I tweeted a few minutes ago that, that Friday night where the Pac-12 got picked apart last August, I believe it was, I remember writing, the Pac-12 is as good as dead. And I could not have been more wrong. There are a lot of different options for those two schools. A reverse merger with the Mountain West was a conversation that, a lot of us in the media were asking about. But clearly, the Pac-12, they were very strategic. So basically what they did was they went to court with their departing members last year, and they won, a 8-figure war chest, of fees from these departing members. And they are going to use those fees to pay the $43 million fee that they now owe the Mountain West by poaching not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 of its schools. And that fee structure is part of the scheduling agreement because Mountain West Commissioner Gloria Nevarez, she anticipated this, right? She saw this coming. So she put it in the agreement that if you want to play football with us, if you want to poach any of our members short of, a literal complete reverse merger, you're going to have to pay minimum $10 million in damages per school. So Mountain West has a $43 million check on the way from the Pac-12. That does not include the $17 million per school exit fees. I've confirmed all of that information unless they negotiate in the future, over the next few months. That's what they're looking at. Pac-12 can pay it. Clearly, SDSU has wanted to be in the Pac-12 forever. So they're willing to pay literally anything, I think, at this point. And that's where we are today.
Amanda Christovich, Front Office Sports, joining us this afternoon on the Patrick Johnson Show. So, a lot of money, as we said, exchanging hands there. But how does the Pac-12 make it back? Because they've got to get a couple more members to at least, be legit to play at the FBS level. They got some time to, I guess, work this out. So that's kind of interesting. And it may tie into another topic that we're talking about here in a few minutes, which is the reason we originally asked you to come on the program. But there's also a feeling, I have to imagine, that they will be able to attract some kind of television deal of some kind that'll bring them some money.
Yeah, absolutely. And the beauty is they now have 2 years to negotiate it. It's all normal now for them. Like, I mean, not fully normal, right? Like they're going to have 6 members. As you said, they still need 2 more to maintain FBS status. People have been throwing out Stanford and Cal coming back. I don't think so because Stanford and Cal are now wrapped up in the ACC's media rights agreement, which, as we know, on here on the East Coast, is being litigated with 4 different lawsuits between
Yeah.
Clemson and Florida State. Um, but I think that a media deal, they're going to have 2 years to negotiate. The Pac-12 after dark question was actually like a feature idea that I had written down about like what's going to be the new Pac-12 after dark. Like that window is lucrative. That window is important for broadcasters. It's not just important for those of us on the East Coast at the bar at 11 p.m. going, Pac-12 after dark is on. Things are about to get weird. um, so I absolutely think that, they're going to pitch the major networks. They obviously still have a very small but existing relationship with Fox Sports. So I imagine that's where they're going to go first, but we'll have to see. I mean, I think the other thing now is that if you're, a group of 5 school and they're definitely going to stay regional, right? It just makes the most sense. But if you're in
Gotcha.
that
Yeah.
region, I mean, look, they could not stay regional, but I just don't think that in the long term that makes sense for them because why would you, they're not going to be getting $1 billion a year in a media deal. So they need to be able to, keep the costs low for their schools.
Well, and
They're
the
not
other
going
part of this, yeah, the other part of this is you're sort of running out of viable options. Of course, a lot of that's out the window now, but I mean, you are running out of just viable options. Not everybody can make this coast to coast trip necessarily, or even out of the central time zone to go there. So we're going to talk about the Dakotas here in just a little bit. Could any of those be an option? Montana State, the Dakota schools. I mean, is that a possibility, or any more Mountain West teams a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that existing Mountain West schools could be a possibility. That I'm struggling a little bit to answer the question though, because the previous sort of flavor of the Pac-12 was so different than this
Oh yeah,
flavor is
yeah.
to be, right? So it's like in my mind, I'm like trying to think about who would fit the new profile of the Pac-12, which is, it's not Stanford and Cal, right? It's Boise State. It's like, it's not like the fancy whatever. It's
Right.
these really these state schools that have these great sort of like local football presences. So I think, yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to see. I'm gonna need to do some more reporting to really answer this question. But I think
Understood. Yeah.
what I would say is like anything west of Central time zone, like you said, or maybe even in the western part of the Central time zone is fair game.
UTEP, baby. Bring UTEP to Pac-12 After Dark. Let's get really great. All right. It is Amanda Christovich with us from Front Office Sports. Let me ask you a little bit about what is going on with the Attorney General of South Dakota. You know, I've had a person here at an administrative board level just kind of thinking out loud, you know, how is all of this passing antitrust sniff tests with or smell test with what's going on with the NCAA now, and for schools of a certain level, East Carolina would kind of fall into that a little bit. So, my thing all along is a lot of these schools at the G5 level are not going to raise too much of a fuss because, one, they want to get included in whatever is coming down the road if they possibly can. And, secondly, they still like to get those nice checks to go play non-conference football games at these places, and they're fearful they may not be able to get some of those. Some of them are fearful of that. I mean, that's over $1 million, a couple $1 million, depending on who you are and where you go. I think it's really gutsy, and I credit, I guess it's the Attorney General of South Dakota for making a run at this thing, the House and the NCAA agreement and what's being done, because it just doesn't seem like competitively, it's terribly fair.
Yeah, I mean, look, the grievances that were brought up in this complaint that the South Dakota Attorney General, as well as the Board of Regents in South Dakota, representing the University of South Dakota and South Dakota State, those are similar grievances to what a lot of folks in the college sports world have had, right? It's like all the non-power conferences had no say, but they're going to be losing millions in, distributions that they would normally get from the NCAA, because that's how the NCAA is going to pay the House settlement. They're not as concerned about the revenue sharing aspect of it. I think they knew that was coming, but, there are issues with the payment structure. The complaint that was filed by the folks in South Dakota went the route of like, this isn't equitable between male and female athletes, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Conference.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add that the conference commissioners that I spoke with a few weeks ago, outside of the power conferences, were all upset about it, but they fell in line. They were like, we're falling in line because we've been convinced that settling with terms that we don't necessarily love is better than not settling. Okay.
Oh,
so
sure. Yeah.
That's what they've decided. So as you said, it's very interesting that now a state attorney general is stepping in and sort of picking up the grievances that they were talking about publicly and saying, you know what, I'm gonna throw these into the ring. And then the other thing I just want to note for you is that this is not an objection to the House lawsuit, like within the House case. There are formal objection procedures. This is a completely different complaint filed in a completely different area. And I was told by one of my fabulous legal experts who's quoted in my story on this, that that's actually a step up from an official objection, which I guess is what they felt like they needed to do since the Houston Christian objection didn't get accepted by the judge.
Do you see other schools like a Houston Christian or anybody else having the guts to jump into this, or attorneys general jumping into this from various states that are compelled to do so?
Well, what I think is so interesting about that question is I'm not sure they're going to have to, because, this complaint came 4 or 5 days after the judge in the House case basically said, I'm not rubber stamping this deal as is. As you mentioned, there are major antitrust issues with the revenue sharing cap. She brought that up. There are, but her biggest concern was this restriction over NIL collectives, where all NIL deals over $600 would have to be approved by a third party chosen by the NCAA, who would be adjudicating whether or not these deals are pay for play or fair market value NIL. I have no idea. Nobody has any idea how that is decided, right? And then the NCAA said, well, if we don't have that in the settlement, we may not have a settlement at all. So I'm not sure it even matters who else wants to join this objection, because to me, it was almost like superfluous. Like, the deal that's on the table is getting, there's not a huge chance at this point that it's going to even be submitted in any sort of form that is similar to what it was before.
Hey, we are very short on time. We got to get to our next guest, but thank you. I hope we will get you back really soon, because this is obviously going to continue to be a story that we're very interested in. Thank you for being with us, Amanda. It's great to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, let's hit a break, Pilk, and when we come back, we'll get Rene Ingolia with us here. Patrick Johnson's show on this Thursday. The Logan Zone will follow. Special time as we are every Thursday. So stay with us here on 94.3 The Game. We are back. Patrick Johnson's show here on a special time every Thursday. We'll be followed by Steve Logan in the Logan Zone. And thanks for being with us here this afternoon. Rene Ingolia going to be in town this weekend. Our great friend from ESPN. He joins us again here on the PJ Show. He'll be in the booth for ESPNU. The U on Saturday afternoon. He'll also join us on the pregame show out at our new locale. So it's great to have Rene on with us. A lot of things to talk about. We'll talk about this game. We'll talk about college football. I do want to say this. Rene should be in the College Football Hall of Fame because Rene not only was the Rochester Rocket, the scrappy upstart underdog who got to the pros, out of UMass, for crying out loud, out of that football factory known as UMass. Not only did he get to the pros, but Rene is a Hall of Fame gem of a human. So I say, put Rene Ingolia in the College Football Hall of Fame. That is my hot take rant for the day. There you go.
PJ, I appreciate that. You've always been a strong advocate for me, and I honestly really do appreciate that. Hey, if it's meant to be, it'll happen, and, I know it's cliche, but I do really mean it's a privilege just to be on the ballot. So if it's meant to be, it'll happen. But, I have a Hall of Fame family, great wife, great kids in college.
Boy.
So, I have nothing to complain about.
And then you got a daughter that's wrapping up her college soccer career this year. Is that right?
Yeah. See, my oldest, Katie, she plays at Lynn University. It's Division II down in South Florida, plays in the Sunshine State Conference. Had a game last night against Barry University. They were down 1-0, and it got called with 22 minutes left because of lightning, because a lot of storms going through. So they're going to finish that one up in October. But, yeah, it's her senior year. So, my advice to you, if you have young kids and they're going up through high school, and it goes fast. It goes fast. So enjoy it. Even the stuff that drives you nuts.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
So I've been reading this a lot lately. The days are long, but the years are fast when it comes to the kids. Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. So now, with that said, I can't wait till they get out and get a job and get their own insurance and pay their own bills. So, not that I'm rushing it, but,
Right. It's the yin and yang of everything. Thank God I don't have kids. That's all I'm saying. Yes.
I got 2 in college, and I told my wife, I said, when these 2, I got 1 at Florida State. I said, when these 2 get out of school and we're not paying tuition and we're not paying room and board, I said, that'll be the biggest raise we ever got in our lives. And it's actually true. So, but girls, enjoy college. Enjoy college.
So you've met my dad, the coach. You've met him.
Yes.
And he, at one time, all 3 of us were in college simultaneously. Isn't that amazing? Crazy stuff. He would be very angry at me if I didn't. He's always angry. But no, he would be very upset if he knew I talked to you and didn't say hello from him. But also, just unrelated, little out of left field here. Duke, I want to, he's a big Duke football fan.
I know. That's where I saw him. I was doing Duke spring game. Right.
Yeah. Manny Diaz. Duke, that was a great win for them at Northwestern. And they've got UConn. They're a big favorite in that. Can Duke start 3-0 for the 3rd straight year this week, you think?
Absolutely, I do. And listen, I like Manny Diaz. When he was the defensive coordinator at Miami, I spoke with him and did some games down there. Just a hard-nosed coach. It's been around a long time. So, but again, defensive oriented. And listen, I talked about this, I think, on another show. At the end of the day, we live in this world where offense and throw the ball around. If you can play defense and run the ball, you're going to win more times than not, right? And so that's just a good philosophy to have, and I think most defensive coaches do that. And so not only 3-0, they play next week at Middle Tennessee State, I believe, Conference USA team. So they got a couple games in front of them where they can get off to a really great start for Duke, for sure.
And then it gets, their ACC schedule is pretty tough. So,
I think then the gauntlet comes.
Yeah, if they could go bowling this year, I think that'd be a huge thing for them. I really, really do. All right, we got a lot to talk about with college football, and I want to start with the game you're going to be on Saturday for the U, and that is East Carolina and App State. I always like to do this whenever we have national-level guests to talk about local things on the show. And Coach, I don't know if you saw this. Coach Houston or heard this. Coach Houston gave you a shout on the radio show. I said Rene's going to be there, and he's like, yeah. So much for you listening, Ingolia. You lied. All right, so I take back every nice thing I've said about you. in the first few minutes of this conversation. I'm
Well,
disappointed.
listen, I've obviously known Mike Houston for a long time, and it goes back to the JMU days. I talked about it at the American Athletic Conference media days. Last year was an outlier for ECU. Let's face it, 2-10. Defense was fine last year. They got and I'm not saying anything that ECU fans, that Pirate Nation doesn't know. They got 0 out of the quarterback position. It just did. It doesn't mean they're bad people, bad kids. They weren't. They're great kids. They just didn't get any play out of it. And in today's world now, people are like, oh, he's contradicting himself. When I just talked about defense and run the ball, quarterback's the premier position. You need a quarterback to run that offense. And if you don't get it, you're not going to win. And they just didn't have it last year. This year, you bring in, a Jake Garcia, Caden Hauser, so you got 2. Garcia wins the job. And the great thing, if you're a Pirates fan, and a great thing if you're John David Baker or you're Mike Houston, is you're 2-0, right? So you've already matched your win total from last year with your quarterback throwing 7 interceptions, which is nuts, right? And it's much better to correct mistakes after wins than it is losses. And they're going to be able to do that. I went through, I broke the game down against Old Dominion, ODU. 4 interceptions he threw. The first one clearly forced it in. There was triple coverage. You just can't do that. He's going to learn from that. Second one, he had a receiver wide open. He was a little pumped up. He's got a strong arm. He overthrows him. Going to correct that. Third one, pressure in his face. He tried to throw it. He got hit. It gets knocked up in the air. He's going to correct that. Sometimes you got to eat it and take a sack. The fourth one was the worst of all because you're in the red zone and you're taking points off the board. I think they were at like the 7 or 8 yard line. He throws an interception in the end zone. Yeah. You cannot do that. So the forced throws are an issue. But again, he's going to sit back. He's going to watch that stuff on film. He's going to fix it again. Even though it's crazy because you see these quarterbacks and he's with his 3rd school, right? And he's been around.
Yeah.
What's he got? 4 or 5 starts under his belt, so he's still relatively young rep-wise. But I love what they're doing with the pace of the offense. 97 plays. I mean, Mike Houston told me in media days it'll be a vastly different offense. We're going to go super fast, and they have. And listen, they got good depth on defense, and depth's key because in this era of the transfer portal, that's where a lot of teams lack is depth, and ECU has it.
Rene Ingolia, ESPN, with us here. Let's compare Garcia, who you just talked about there with the turnovers, and maybe some of the things you do like about Garcia. And let's compare him to Joey Aguilar, who had a fabulous year last year, had a lousy game at Clemson, but the whole team did, and that was just a buzzsaw situation. So compare the quarterback. Who has the edge? Go.
So Joey Aguilar has an edge in that. It's his 2nd year in Frank Ponce, their offensive coordinator system at App State. So, we just talked about it, right? There's no substitution for game reps, for experience. So Aguilar has all that. And I think Aguilar's biggest thing was from last year to this year is he's just learning the offense more and more and more. And so Jake Garcia is going to do that. And I think I heard John David Baker talk about it, and it might have been Mike Houston too. It's like what he needs to learn is it's okay to check the ball down. You can't hit a home run every play. Check it down, check it out. And guess what? It's okay to throw it away, get out of the pocket, whatever, throw it out of bounds, live for another down. So that's all stuff he's going to learn. Now, he may learn that quicker, but in that respect, I give the advantage to Joey Aguilar. What I really like about Jake Garcia is he's a gunslinger. He's got a strong arm, and he's got that moxie that you love. But sometimes, sometimes you get burned by it, but I'd rather have that moxie where, okay, I threw an interception. I'm going to go out and sling it around again. Okay, I threw another interception. I'm going to go out and sling it around again. So once he understands, okay, I can sling it around, but I also have to pick and choose not to force it in certain situations, check it down. Advantage to Aguilar based on experience, but I love the upside of Jake Garcia and everything he brings to the table for ECU.
All right, let's compare the defenses with Rene Ingolia here. ECU and App State, 4 o'clock on Saturday. We'll have our Anson, Belt, and Buckle Pirate Game Day Countdown presented by Orthopedics East at 1 o'clock under the ECU Sports Properties tent. Myself, Philip the Ref Pilkington, Joey Football, Joe Sampson. Igo will be there, and Rene will be by at 2 o'clock for anyone that wants pictures or for him to kiss their baby. And he may do that. I don't know. Zakai Barker, Gavin Gibson had a pick 6 in the first week for the Pirates. You got Mike Edwards, the third, Big Tay has played very
Yeah.
well. Deontay Johnson for the Pirates, Savone Revel, of course, IBM for the Pirates. I'm just rolling through some names here of guys that have had some big games. Surad Ware had a big sack in the fourth quarter against Old Dominion for East Carolina. So you got that group there. And then I look at Appalachian State defensively, some names that have had a good year for them so far. Farrer has had a good year for them. Ronald Clark so far. DJ Burks, Jordan Favors. So compare the defense because they kind of run out of the same base. App brings the secondary a little more on the blitz, but the Pirates are so exotic and do different things. Who has the advantage defensively, and what do you like about both sides defensively here?
Well, first of all, App State is going to come in a bad mood. I mean, they ran into an absolute buzzsaw in Clemson. So for those that may not have watched the game or just saw the score, the first 8 possessions for Clemson, they scored on App State, all touchdowns. I heard Sean Clark say yesterday that they gave up 9 explosive plays, 8 in the passing game, 1 in the running game. And we're talking not like 18-yard explosive plays, like 80 yards, 70. I mean, explosive plays. So they're going to be in a bad mood. For them to fix stuff, it's really just kind of their eyes. I think they were in a lot of just looking in the wrong places against Clemson. So throw that out. I talked about an outlier season for ECU last year. Last week was an outlier game for App State. I think everyone in Pirate Nation knows that, and everyone in fans of App State know that as well. It was an outlier. So throw that away. They're going to come in a bad mood. You're right. Similar defenses. I would expect Scott Sloan and App State maybe dial up some more blitzes and pressure because of Jake Garcia being a new starter. So look for them to get
the Pirate offensive line and the offensive line for the Pirates, Rene, has struggled with pressure. I mean, there's no sugarcoating that.
So you got to challenge it, but so let's go to the ECU side now. And I talked about this earlier. What I really like about them is depth. They got a lot of depth on that defensive line. And Blake Harrell talked about like mismanaging it, not getting guys in enough. He wants to play all those guys up front about 50 plays a game. He said they were at 75, which is too much, which I agree. But they have the depth to rotate guys in. So look for a lot of guys in that defensive line to rotate in. Siobhan Revel in the back end he's one of the top corners in the nation. He really is. But the thing I like with ECU defensively is you see some guys. You talked about Zakai Barker. He was a big special teams guy last year. Now he's stepping up playing. And so if you run the transfer portal right, you retain most of your team, right? And then you kind of add and fill in some pieces here and there. But I really like the depth at ECU. But it's going to be a really good chess match, if you will, watching the two defenses go at the offenses.
You see a lot of offensive lines, and I know I give, everybody see, you're just harping on the offensive line. I talked to a good friend of mine who played offensive line for the Pirates yesterday. He actually likes the way they're playing. I know Mike Houston does as well. But they have struggled with pressure. And, I think that has also kind of contributed a little bit to Garcia's issues. Now, he's made some forced throws, as you say, and as we all have said. But I think that's the thing that's going to be real interesting tomorrow Saturday. You can't turn it over that amount of times and give extra possession, whether App's struggling with what they're trying to do offensively now or not, because defensively it is going to be I don't think it's going to be quite as low scoring as Old Dominion. And if you disagree with me, please tell me why. But I see this game being in the mid, maybe upper 20s, like a 28-24, 28-20, 21 kind of deal.
I would agree with that. And getting back to the pressure in offensive line picking up, when you have the grasp of an offense and you really understand an offense, and you're kind of clicking on all cylinders, you want the defense to blitz you. Because when they do that, they're leaving gaping holes in different areas that you can exploit. And so as an experienced quarterback that understands the offense, you want that blitzing. For instance, I had Memphis last week. Seth Hennigan has been in that offense for 4 years. He's one of the most prolific passers in the NCAA now in history. They wanted Troy to blitz them. Blitz them. They go, we pray they blitz us because they know they can go and pick them apart. So I think that's kind of the chess match. If App State sends pressure, and sometimes you talk about offensive lines not picking it up. Sometimes they send more pressure. You don't have enough guys to pick it up, right? But that's where Jake Garcia has to get him in the right play, has to check out of it, has to have hot reads. That's all that inside baseball stuff that you have to be able to do that I'll be looking for this week. So I love the experience of the offensive line of ECU. I love that you got Raji Harris going again, which is great to see. Again, in this era of transfer portal, kid's been there 5 years, and so you love to see that game that he had against ODU. So you want to get that run game going as well. But, yeah, I can't wait to watch this matchup. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going down to the fourth quarter for sure.
All right, Rene's going to hold through a break. When we come back, we're going to have some more college football chat with the great Rene Ingolia, and we're also going to get some keys from Rene, what he thinks both sides have to do to be successful Saturday. All of that is coming up.
We have you covered with all the ECU news and beyond that you need for the drive home. The Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
Former Orlando police detective, ESPN college football analyst for the last decade and a half, the great Rene Ingolia, the Rochester Rocket, former NFL player, joins us here. He'll be on the call with Mike Corey on ESPNU, 4 o'clock from Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium for ECU and App State on Saturday. Rene will be with us at 2 on our Pirate Game Day Countdown broadcast on 94.3 The Game of the IB. Yes.
Are we getting a sellout or what? We're close, right?
We're pretty close. I was admonished for announcing ticket numbers earlier in the week, so I'm waiting. Tomorrow on the show, we will maybe give an update on ticket numbers, but I cannot say very much right now because there are tickets, and they want to sell the tickets, and you get that. I mean, and I think it's going to be pretty darn close to 50. I really do. I think it's going to be really, really close. Which, I mean, if you think about that, Rene, ECU's coming off 2 wins. App State. I mean, this is kind of what college football is all about, in my mind. Now, regional rivalry, electric building, close to a sellout, if not a sellout crowd. We're getting away from some of that, obviously. Times change, but I think that there is a real I don't know, what would you, I mean, to me, this is kind of there's something about this that has a nice familiar feel to it that we're maybe getting away from in the sport.
You have to keep playing these games no matter what happens. It's so good for both fan bases, and I can tell you because obviously we get assigned the games not late. It's not like I knew I was getting this game last year. I knew I was getting this game like last week. And the hardest thing for me, and it's actually a good thing, when you go to these college towns, it's hard to get a hotel room, believe it or not. I mean, ESPN sometimes has some packages, bundles, but other times they don't. And I can tell you every single hotel room in Greenville was sold out. I was able to get a room. I'm not telling you where I'm staying. I don't want any haters showing up. But that's always a good sign when you have issues getting hotel rooms because App State fans are going to travel well. And so, this is the type of atmosphere. To me, PJ, this is college football. I know they're not in the same conference, but same state. And just, this is college football. And I love these game day environments. And I'm excited to call this one Saturday.
All right, we'll get keys from you when we wrap things up. Let's talk some other things. It was announced earlier today. Reported numerous places overnight that the Mountain West is losing Colorado State, San Diego State, Boise State, and what was the other one? Somebody help me here. Pilkington, Colorado State. I think I said that already.
Fresno State's the one you didn't mention.
Fresno State. Fresno. Yeah, okay. So the 4 states leaving the Mountain West to join Oregon State and Washington State. All right, so does that give us any kind of idea where the Pac-12 may be going to resurrect itself potentially, or does that give us any kind of, I mean, in other words, are they going to stay kind of Mountain West Coast, or are they going to encroach into other parts of the country?
Well, they need 2 more schools because they have to be to 8.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They got to get somebody.
So listen, it's fascinating, right? Because we've seen so many FCS schools make the jump in the past few years. So do the FCS juggernauts in a North Dakota State and a South Dakota State, do they make the
That's a
jump?
good
Does a
point.
Montana State? So you got that, right? Still in your region, and they're really, and they have great fan bases, by the way, too. Is that where the Pac-12 goes? Someone this morning said, "Oh, are they going to come to the American?" I'm like, well, who from the American would go to that? I mean, first of all, they don't have a TV deal. We all know everything's driven on money and TV deal. If the Big 12 or a Power 4 that's established now comes, I think you listen. So, I don't think, I don't think they come towards the American. I frankly don't know what they could give more than the American right now, but so it'll be fascinating. One thing to keep an eye on, and this is just my opinion, nothing that I've heard from the American, but with those 4 schools leaving the Mountain West, watch for Air Force coming to the American. To me, it's a no-brainer. You would have Army, Navy, and Air Force all in the same conference.
Yeah.
For God's sakes, it's called the American. So that's something I would watch for. That's something I would watch for happening as well down the line. And then it's just kind of that circle of, okay, they still need another couple. The Mountain West will have to grab some more schools as well. So it's fun times, right? It's not stopping. Listen, I said this, and I believe this will happen wholeheartedly. Once this TV contract kind of works itself out, and we get through this 12-team playoff here in a couple of years. I think in about 6 years, so around 2030-ish, I think we're going to have probably 64, 68 teams break off from the NCAA. They're going to do their own thing. They'll keep a 12-team playoff. Ironically, you'll have about 68 or 70 schools left. I think they'll probably stay under the NCAA umbrella. They'll probably do a playoff as well. You'll intermingle bowls in there. They'll still all cross and play each other, kind of like FCS plays FBS now. And I think that's what will happen ultimately in about 6 or 7 years.
The great Rene Ingolia joining us here on the Patrick Johnson Show. Teresa Gould has the greatest job in sport, and that is she's a commissioner of a 2-team conference this year. So she gets to go to all of the cocktail parties and only has to go see a couple of and then look, she gets to go to San Diego next year. So, I mean, come on. Or in a couple of years. That's not a bad deal. I'll probably start next year. All right. Let me ask you about NIU's upset of Notre Dame. Is Riley Leonard kind of mismanaged maybe in that offense, in your opinion? And then it's not like NIU is Boise, App State, even East Carolina or Memphis. It's not like a program that has been a perennial winner in recent times. They've had a couple of good years when Dave Doran was there before he went to NC State. But it's not like NIU is that brand name that and I mean, that's a pretty big pelt that they got last weekend too.
Yeah, it was a shocking loss. Mike Denbrock, the new offensive coordinator at Notre Dame, great coach, been everywhere. Came from LSU. He's at Cincinnati. And so, listen, 2 games, right, for Riley Leonard. It's hard to tell. Obviously, we know the ability he has. We've seen it. But sometimes here's the danger you run into with a transfer portal. You chase these other programs. You chase NIL money. You chase whatever, and you go. Sometimes it's just not a fit. It just isn't, right? Now, it's too early to say that right now for Riley Leonard. It really is. But now the pressure is on him. And listen, if you're Notre Dame, you have to make the college football playoff as an at-large, right? We know that, right? So you can't get a 1 through 4 seed. You can't get a bye. 5 is the best you can do, okay? We already know that. So, a lot of teams that take a big loss early that's non-conference are like, okay, we're all right. We can still win our conference and get in, right?
Not Notre Dame.
If not at large.
Not Notre Dame.
But now Notre Dame, because they're not in a conference, they got to run the table. But I heard someone say this. I'm not going to take credit for it, but let's say they end up 11-1. Well, there's going to be I think it's safe to say there's probably going to be some other teams, a good amount of teams that are also 11-1, vying for an at-large playoff spot, right? When you compare when you start comparing the 1 losses as the committee, holy cow, you lost to NIU, not taking anything away from Northern Illinois, but you lost to NIU at home when you were a 30-point favorite, 28-point favorite. That
Yeah.
is a horrible loss that the committee will look at head to head with a bunch of other one-loss teams at the end of the year. So we'll see if it bites them in the butt come playoff time.
ESPN college football analyst Rene Ingolia, who had Memphis last week, and Memphis plays Florida State this week. Seminoles are coming off an open week. So how do you see that one going?
The shocking thing for me last week, we did, we used a lot of computers, so it was like the all-state predictor for the group of 5, and there was 5 schools in there, and Memphis wasn't one of them. So I was really shocked at that. Boise had the highest percentage of making it from the group of 5, but it had UTSA in there from the American and Tulane over Memphis. Now, Tulane I agree with. UTSA had not only a shocking loss. It's not that it was a shocking loss to Texas State. It was they got humiliated. So you could probably pull them out of there. Coastal Carolina was on that as well, if I remember correctly. But I say no, Memphis has to be on here. I'm very curious to see what happens against Florida State. Memphis is Memphis. They're not. You know what you're getting. There's a good amount of experience there. I talked about the quarterback play. Their offensive line is 5 new guys, so that could be an issue. But really, it's not so much what Memphis can do down there. It's this game to me is all about Florida State. You know, everyone wants to talk about DJ Uiagalelei. Listen, has DJ Uiagalelei gone out and won Florida State games? No, obviously not. They're 0-2. But he hasn't lost them those 2 games either. He just hasn't. They have been beaten at the line of scrimmage. Their offensive line has not got the running game going. They kind of got punched in the mouth. And that defensive line that we were told is one of the best in the country has also got beaten at the line of scrimmage. So they need to step up. I think the secondary of Florida State's been fine, but they've been put in a bind because that defensive front's been beat up. And I think the linebackers need to step up. And obviously they need to get a running game going. So that's a fascinating game. And I think that's the early game. I think that's a noon game Saturday. So I will I'll have an eye on the scoreboard there to see what happens. But it's a chance for Memphis again to, say we're a national level program. Okay, we're here. And I mean, if they can go in there and upset Florida State, and it's still an upset. I think someone said the line was only 7, which is kind of amazing, right? Because think about what Florida State did last year. Florida State's 2-0. That line's probably 18 or something. You know, now it's 7.
Yeah.
If Memphis goes in there and upsets them, first of all, I think the state, Doak Campbell Stadium's under construction right now. If they go 0-3, I think that stadium might just crumble. But yeah, that's another fascinating game to watch. You know, and who would have thought? I mean, remember, Mike Norvell left Memphis to go to Florida State. Now, Ryan Silverfield, the coach at Memphis, took over, and he's friends with Mike Norvell. And I asked Ryan, I said, you talked to Mike lately? He's like, not in the last 2 weeks. If you would have asked Mike Norvell last year, before they got snubbed from the playoff, but when they were ACC champs and they were undefeated, hey, Mike, just want to tell you, fast forward in this crystal ball, next year, going into game 3, you're going to be 0-2. And not only 0-2, you're going to lose your last 3 because they got blown out in their bowl game. So you're going to go into that game on a 3-game losing streak. You're not going to be in the top 25, and your old team's going to come in from Memphis undefeated. He'd have been like, are you crazy? Well, that's where we are. So love college football.
Hard to believe. All right, keys to the game. Rene will be on the TV call of ECU and App. Give me some keys for both sides for Saturday.
Okay, nothing earth-shattering. Jake Garcia has to protect the football. You cannot turn the ball. If he turns the ball over, or they in ECU, they turn the ball over the way they have the first 2 games, they will not beat App State. That is a given. It's just not going to happen. It's too good of an opponent. I think they got to get Raji Harris 100 yards rushing again. I think that's key. And I also think they're going to go super fast again. I don't know if they'll get 97 snaps, but they're going to try. For an aggressive defense like App State, I think if you can move them sideline to sideline, so your quick offense, you get Raji running the ball, but also you're throwing to the perimeters. Get them going sideline to sideline. To me, that's a key. Defense for ECU, rotate that defensive line, that defensive front, keep them really fresh and get after it. And then for App State, really just go back to being App State. You have to flush the Clemson game. Flush the Clemson game. Do what you do best. And really, to me, it's solid football on both sides of the ball, right? And, again, I just talked about ECU not turning it over. If you're App State, you need to get those takeaways, right? Get those takeaways, get some momentum, and steal some possessions for your offense. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be a heck of a ball game. Can't wait to call this one. And I'm with you. I think a tight game in the fourth quarter. And I would agree, something like a 28-24 game.
All right, Rene, great to talk to you. Thanks for the time.
Hey, we'll see you in Greenville.
All right, thank you, Rene Ingolia. Great to have you with us here today. Rene will be with us, Pirate Game Day Countdown at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon here on 94.3 The Game. Thanks to Rene. Thanks to Amanda Christovich. Boy, what an active day in college athletics, as it always is. We'll be back tomorrow at our normal time of 5 o'clock. Coach Logan slated to join us. We'll have Chris Cherry, AD and football coach of South Central. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody. I'm headed over to MC the Shook Roast for the Boy Scouts fundraiser. So enjoy Coach Logan coming up, and there's some tickets. So if you want to join us tonight at the Murphy Center, I hope you will. All right, have a great rest of your day. Thanks to you as well, Pilk. We'll see you tomorrow.